This morning's reading is from Healing the Heart of Democracy by Parker J. Palmer. In his book, Healing the Heart of Democracy, Parker Palmer reminds us that an opportunity to create a civic community is available in all public spaces. He writes, "Look at what happens day in and day out in these vital public settings. Strangers meet on common ground. Fear of the stranger is reduced. Life is given color, texture, flair, drama, and humor. People are drawn out of themselves. Common concerns are identified. Conflict can be negotiated. Needs become evident, and mutual aid becomes possible. Ideas and resources can be shared and generated. People are empowered and protected against power." In the company of strangers, we can learn that we are all in this together. Despite our many differences, that some of our differences are enriching and those that are vexing are negotiable, that it is possible to do business amicably with one another, even in the face of conflicting interests. When a society is rich in settings that offer opportunities of this sort, we, the people, can become a vital reality rather than a philosophical abstraction. Here ends the reading.
We have a second reading from another voice, a Nigerian-American poet named Hafiza Getter. And there's a couple of Hausa terms that will help you to know. And one is that naira are coins, and kai means you. Naturalized citizen. Evenings, our mother sat in her sewing room, hair wrapped, mouthing amendments as she studied the Constitution. Her whisper, not English, not her Hausa tongue, but something lower, like a car engine choking its own throttle. Together we named presidents, capital cities, adopted habits like moving her green card from one closet to another. She kept a folder for every one of her lives. In the kitchen, she turned cream of wheat to tuwo shinkafa, cooked kuka until our Catholic uniforms stunk of baobab leaves. She'd spend weeks in her garden refusing to explain anything but the marigolds. In America, no one could say her name correctly. America, becoming our mother's junkyard. Her name rusting like a pile of crushed Chevys beneath the salt of so many tongues. Our mother wanted something from America more than children. On weekends, we stole the heads off her rhododendrons, counted the naira in her underwear drawer. From calling cards, we learned phrases of her spent mother tongue. Na gudi meant thank you. Kai, everything else. Langston Hughes from Let America Be America Again. Oh, yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. It's very cool when advances in the sciences confirm and validate what humans have understood on an intuitive level and tried to explain in spiritual ways for a really long time. One of those validations is happening right now as genetic researchers are discovering that trauma alters the DNA, which means that the terrible things endured by previous generations is not just something that their great-great-great-grandchildren inherit by memories shared through stories or photos or artifacts, but they're actually memories that are stored in the genes. And in some way that I don't understand, and that researchers are just beginning to get a grasp on through the field of epigenetics, the prolonged emotional terror of, for example, war, exile, enslavement, encodes itself in the genes themselves. And so what is passed down from generation to generation is not just eye color and personality traits, but mental and physical health issues. So this is why when we consider, for instance, the justice issue of reparations to the African American descendants of those enslaved in America, we should remember William Faulkner's famous quote, "The past is never dead, it's not even past," because that turns out to be actually true in a biological sense. For all of us, the understanding that so many people, our friends, our neighbors, our community members, are carrying actual pain from their forebears should generate a sense of compassion and solidarity, but, it doesn't always. What you have seen, undoubtedly, as I have, is that the common experience of devastating histories can too often lead to competitive suffering narratives. My people had it just as bad or worse than yours. This attitude sets up false equivalencies, and one that I've heard a lot in my anti-racism work is the idea that the hardships of indentured servitude endured by Irish immigrants is somehow equivalent to chattel slavery suffered by Africans stolen in the transatlantic slave trade. It's not an accurate equivalent. And this whole process can lead to what somebody dubbed the oppression Olympics. There's no winners in that competition. That's a divisive game with no prizes. To inherit pain is part of the human condition, and some have inherited more than others, some of it closer to their lifetimes than others. Our aim is to understand and support one another wherever we are on that continuum of suffering and of comfort. As we roll into Memorial Day, instituted as a day of remembrance for the Civil War dead, I think about how all children of America itself have a shared trauma that we need to understand, claim, and heal from. Justice and equity can't happen if we don't do that. And as you can see right now, big populations of Americans are vehemently resisting facing the truth of our inherited national trauma. Even if I wasn't there or somebody wasn't there, the land remembers. The descendants of those annihilated in the genocide of indigenous peoples remember. There is pain here. I remember St. Paul's letter to the early Christian community in Corinth, where he says that famous thing about how when I was a child, I thought like a child and I acted like a child. When I was a child, I used to think, well, all of my European relatives were murdered in the Holocaust in Europe, and I didn't have anything personally to do with slavery or the genocide of indigenous people in America. So I'm very sad about that, but it doesn't really affect me. I thought like a child. I remember my own childhood belief that the Civil War was fought in the 19th century and that it did end slavery and that the Union troops prevailed. And God bless America, that chapter's totally over. I thought like a child. I remember my super patriotic 4th grade self singing, and some of you might remember this one, 50 Nifty United States. Did you guys sing that in your like elementary school? It was like very like 50 nifty United States of 13 original colonies. And you sang through all the states' names. And this was my bicentennial pageant in 1976. Some of us were dressed as Northerners. I mean, I can't believe we did this now, and some as Southerners, and the girls who were the Southern belles got to wear these really big skirts, and all of us wanted to be Southern belles. The Civil War was a costume drama for us. It was like ancient history as far as we were concerned, but of course, Faulkner, the past isn't past. It's not dead. It's not even past. I learned that, later in life, and then I became an adult and put away childish things, as Paul wrote. And I learned a lot more about my country, how it worked then, how it continued to operate, and how it operates now. And I now understand that I've inherited not only the pain of what happened to my own blood kin in Europe and here as Jewish immigrants and Slovak immigrants, I have also inherited the pain of American violence. And I must be part of the recovery process as my country struggles in its moral evolution, or not. We must all consider, because we are most certainly at a reckoning point in the not at all United States of America, what our shared DNA is as a nation. Of course, we don't literally have national genetics, but we share an environment, political, emotional, environmental, that affects the health and well-being of every person and all living things that reside here. And as if that's not enough, we export that environment in the form of military, business, and cultural interests to the rest of the globe. Just as descendants of traumatized generations have been learning about epigenetics in order to embrace the challenges of the present and the future with renewed health and clarity, and embracing self-care practices to help in that, so could and should America as a whole. This is, of course, an aspiration. It's a dream. I don't hold starry-eyed expectations that it will happen in my lifetime, which is one during which, and now I'm going to quote more from Parker Palmer's book, Healing the Heart of Democracy, the norms of social decency have weakened and fearmongers whip up what Henry Giroux has called a culture of cruelty, working nonstop to undo democratic values, compassion, and any visible notion of justice and its accompanying social relations. But I maintain hope because I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and the belief in the possibility of human moral progress is a bedrock of our faith tradition. The first step to healing from trauma is to diagnose it properly with clear and thorough information and the moral strength to know the truth. The reason so many Americans are being effectively manipulated by inflammatory rhetoric is that they're scared. They're terrified of the truth. They feel complicit, and they therefore resist knowing it. I have never understood this personally, as the maxim, "the truth will set you free," is one of the most reliable pieces of wise guidance ever uttered. Jesus said it, the Greek philosophers said it, Confucius said it in his way. It's an undeniable fact that physicians can't treat a sick person if they don't properly understand the disease. Neither can a country recover itself from the sickness of violence and discord if it's not honest about the sources of the disease. I wave my stars and stripes with pride and gratitude only when we tell the truth about America, and only then. I wave my flag with pride and give deep thanks for the sacrifices of soldiers on Memorial Day because I live in a free country and have access, still, thank God, to accurate and truthful information about America's real founding stories. Not the romanticized version or the white supremacist version that others want to preserve and, propagate. And I will wave my flag because we can continue to tell the truth about how far our nation has come in its moral evolution and how far it still has to go. I was talking with some members of the social justice ministry team last week, and we were talking about what congregational initiatives should we plan for the next program year. And Martha Curry recommended that we embrace a study of the 1619 Project, which is, you might remember, it began as a series in the New York Times, and it studies 400 years since the transatlantic slave trade began. And one of the reasons we said that would be a good one to look at together, to study together, is because it's being banned. It's being banned and thrown out of libraries. It's not allowed to be taught in some schools in this country. So in order to express some of our commitments in a real way toward understanding truth and being courageously embracing it, we were like, yeah, you know what? Let's study some banned books, as it were. And it is also available in book form. May the soldiers rest in peace with our thanks. May we move forward with respect for their sacrifices, their suffering, and the profound sorrows of all who have endured the cruelties of war by ourselves beating swords into plowshares, practicing peace, and courageously pursuing the truth that sets all people free. God bless America.